So you all have heard me talk about animated movies and the good ones out there, right? You've heard me gush about how much I love those great animated films, from Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks, all that good stuff. But one thing I rarely talk about are the animated movies that I hate, the ones that suck. Now, I've talked some about the ones that we all agree suck, but I haven't never really thought about doing a top 10 list on what my all-time least favorite animated movies are. Well, after careful research and careful uncomfortable viewings, I have a list now. And today I'm going to be sharing with you all my top 10 list of the animated movies that I despise the most. Now, keep in mind, there could be a chance that some of you people out there find an animated movie that you enjoy on this list. Whether it's one that I highly disagree with, or one that I just have a personal dislike for, but I'll respect what you have to say. It's just all kind of more represented towards how awful the script is, or of course how unfun the animation looks. Supposedly that's what it is. So yeah, this is my list. These are the anime movies that I really hate the most. And yeah, let's rank. Starting off, we got this interesting film from 2008. This is a movie that revolves around monkeys and space. It's space monkeys, only instead of it being space monkeys, it's space chimps. Haha, funny saying. There really isn't much I can say about this movie. I think most of the hate surrounding it kind of has to do with how lame it is. Like there really isn't much holding it back. It's just a lame, not really exciting film where these monkeys, human-sized monkeys, are going to space and get a fun adventure out of it. But there really isn't much else to it to make it that exciting. The jokes don't really land as well. There's a lot of stuff I keep forgetting about, and I really did not want to revisit this movie. I thought I've seen enough of it to just give it the hate that it deserves. But I want to know, was there really something to it that makes it memorable? But the thing is, there really isn't. It's just forgettable. It's not really that interesting. The animation doesn't have any cool irks to it. The story is not that exciting. It's just kind of bland and uninteresting. I never really found this movie to really be that much discussed. It's just one of those films that I hate for being not funny and not anything exciting. So that's what you gotta give to this movie. It looks like it's trying so hard to be so comedic and satirical when it just comes off as not funny, not cool. So, the early 2000s, around the 2000s and even some early 2010 films, there's this thing called motion capture. Nowadays, it's still being used, of course, mostly in the big budget movies. But back when it was first introduced for cinema, a lot of movies that used it were kind of just only using it. I mean, like, we got movies that were fully animated with motion capture. Films such as The Polar Express or Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol or the Weird Beowulf film. There are a good amount of animated movies that were made entirely using motion capture. But one that I feel kind of was the reason why we don't see this done mostly anymore is with Mars Needs Moms. This movie just annoyed the hell out of me. The animation side, I mean, I wasn't too annoyed because I get it. It's motion capture. Like, I've seen this in movies before. I'm not too terrified with it because I've gotten quite used to it somewhat. The story, though, it is stupid in every way. It's about this boy who hates his mom, but his mom is sent to Mars, so he has to save her. We get these lame characters. We get this annoying kid who is not fun as a lead role. And I gotta say, even in terms of the motion capture, it doesn't really strive well here. I mean, movies like Polar Express, they have their not so pleasant moments because, yeah, motion capture isn't high quality animation for some people. You'll probably see it as creepy and uncanny. But here they seem to show that off a lot to the point where you get really annoyed with it. Because in other movies, I feel like they were still able to utilize it finally, I guess. I guess they were more interested in seeing how the dances work. But here it just seems like I'm not interested in it. I'm just too distracted by how much they do not need to be looking this weird. And yeah, the overall story just isn't anything exciting. It's these annoying characters who aren't really that fun. They don't have any good funny things to say. And you're mostly just spending time wishing they get killed. You're not interested in I'm annoyed by every character in this movie. Every character this movie has I just get really irritated with. I don't really find any charm with any of the characters this movie gives us. Now, when you think of Star Wars The Clone Wars, usually the first thing that comes to mind, or more so the only thing that comes to mind, is the popular, really well good TV series. And yes, I agree. The Clone Wars is a great Star Wars cartoon. The show ran for like about 7 to 8 seasons, and it's really amazing. There's lots of great stuff to it. The characters are fun. It serves as a fun little prequel story showing some chemistry between Anakin as well as some other characters we never got to see in the movies. But what people don't seem to remember is the fact that the Clone Wars actually first began as a movie. Yes, back in 2008 when the show premiered, they actually premiered the show by first showing a feature film that kind of shows presents it towards. So yeah, there's the Clone Wars movie, a movie that really sucks. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I don't want to say something awful about Star Wars. I don't want to say this movie doesn't compare to the bad Star Wars movies out there. Like, this isn't like one of those terrible films where it's just bad writing or bad acting or something. No, it really does suck at just being memorable. Like, there's nothing memorable because with the bad Star Wars movies, at least you can remember them. Like, you at least you're able to recognize what happened. Like, you can still follow it. You know, you might not like what the story is, but you remember the story. The Clone Wars, this movie does not have anything memorable. The animation's not good either. I mean, you could argue this just looks like how it does in the show, but now here's the thing. The movie kind of uses the animation. I'm going to be honest. It looks a lot uglier in the movie than in the show. In the show, they do utilize the animation for the right reasons. In the movie, the colors are darker, and these designs just don't look pleasing with the dark tone and the sort of cinematic feel they want to try and give this world. So it just comes off as looking, not really pleasing. And yeah, there's nothing about it that's memorable. It's trying to set up the series more than it's trying to just tell a story with some meaning. So when we're introduced characters like Ahsoka, for example, or all the other ones in this movie, we don't get anything out of them. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I did not like Ahsoka in this movie. Yes, Ahsoka is a great hero in the show, but in the movie, she's just randomly introduced, and throughout the movie, we don't really see much of her being that fun. She's just not really that exciting to watch. And even the other main characters, like Anakin, he's not fun. There's not much to his story that relates to the other Star Wars movies. It's just nothing really exciting. The animation's bland, the story doesn't have much going for it. It just feels like it's trying to set up the series by being cinematic, when really just releasing the show on its own would have been a better job. And this movie really does need to exist. And I think most people just accepted not calling this movie a Star Wars film, just not acknowledging its existence. So whenever you bring up the Clone Wars, you're just gonna automatically just shoot out the show. You don't. The movie just doesn't come up in that kind of situation. So I've talked a little bit about how annoying this movie is before, but let me just go into more extra details. I talked about how Hotel Transylvania is a decent movie series at first. The first movie was good. It had some things that were a little on the scale of Sony's unsettling humor, but it worked fine for the most part. It was a creative premise. It did its humor well. The second movie wasn't as good, but it definitely was still going fine with its idea. It did do enough with its setup. Now, the third movie, I was expecting to just be also kind of weak, the weakest, but still, maybe, at least still working fine with its idea. I really hated this movie. I honestly got so annoyed with it. The characters annoyed me, the story annoyed me. There's really nothing else I can say about this movie other than the fact that I found it pretty annoying. Like, it just said a lot of stuff. It felt like the first three movies with humor that's just much more dumbed down. It's like it's trying to be the first two movies, only when those movies did actually seem to try more with its humor and stuff. This movie just doesn't try. Honestly, I just gotta think that. I think every time this movie tries to be funny or creative, they just end up not actually trying. Just kind of going with whatever they think of, like, boom, that hopefully that's funny. I didn't get it. No. Honestly, I really don't know how much more I can say about this film. I can't really say much more other than the fact that I find it pretty annoying, especially compared to how finely well the first two movies were. And I just don't think they did much with this. I feel like this series is just done for. But no, Sony's gonna milk it. They're gonna make it their Toy Story or Ice Age of their studio. And yeah, that's just what it's gonna be. It could have been the Spider-Verse movies. They seem like they could have had a big potential for having a big saga for Sony, but no. Seems like this has been Sony's first big mindset. Here's another movie I don't think I can say much about that hasn't already been said before. The Emoji Movie is pretty self explanatory. It's a movie about emojis and the world inside the phone. Yeah, you know for a fact this does not seem watchable. You know what? I didn't really watch this much by choice. You know, sometimes you have to watch a movie for the sake of someone else showing it, and you're just like, ugh, God, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Well, who knows? Maybe I'll get something good out of it. Nope. What? Why did I think that? It's lame. There's a lot, but I think my hatred towards this movie is a little different than what other people say. For one, I will admit the animation isn't awful. I guess I can admit the movie does is fine. I guess in terms of animation because the animation in this movie isn't bad. It's definitely better compared to some of the other movies I talked about on this list, but they just utilize it for the wrong kind of characters, I guess. They also utilize a lot of things that shouldn't be here. For example, celebrity voices. Like the amount of celebrity voices they threw in this movie is just unneeded and no. Like I can't even name off the top of my head. I don't want to remember how many people signed on to do this movie. I don't even remember what this how well the story was developed. We got a world of emojis. Oh no, this one emoji doesn't like his emoji. He wants to change himself, be cool, but at the end of the day he learns, oh, would you look at that? It's fine to be who you are. Yeah, no, I just got bored just saying that. This movie just isn't creative, okay? It's just taking something that was popular and trying to give it some cinematic quality while just taking things we've already seen before. So honestly, I don't know how a movie like this got such a big budget. This should have just been one of those direct to DVD foreign films that we see a lot. But instead, no, this is an American theatrical release movie that Sony thought was perfect for kids to love. And unfortunately, there are kids out there who probably see this as such fun humor, and I would hate to meet those kids. I don't want to be rude to kids, so I would hate to meet a kid who tells me that he would love to watch the Emoji Movie again because it was such a great film. If I ever meet a kid who tries to convince me that this movie is funny, I don't know how many more kids I can talk to. Another film that kind of fell under the radar being what was that exactly? The Tom and Jerry movie from the 90s. When you think of Tom and Jerry's cinematic equivalent, some people would go to one of the more recent ones. There was one that recently came out around 2021. That one sort of went for a Roger Rabbit approach. I never saw when it first came out, but I did check it out eventually, and it's not good. But I want to get more of my direction towards when Tom and Jerry did first make it to the big screen. And that was all the way back in 1992. This movie that came out is pretty awful. And I gotta say, there's lots of things that are wrong with it. One of the biggest is how many plots are juggled. This is kind of a thing that happens with these kind of movies, you know? We got, because Tom and Jerry, there's not much to them. I mean, they're funny, but they don't really seem like enough to hold a whole movie. And that's exactly the problem, that they throw in a lot of these other big story elements that we're kind of supposed to pay more focus for. And the main Tom and Jerry aspect is just not really there that much. So whatever they're fighting, you're just like, oh yeah, this is a Tom and Jerry movie. Yeah, no, there's not much else I can say. The animation's weak. It doesn't even really feel like very cinematic, even for the time. And there's even moments where they do try to give Tom and Jerry some cinematic equivalents, but it just ends up making them not in character. For like they go for the big role and having them speak, use dialogue, that just end up making them more annoying, per se. They also tried making this a musical, and that didn't work. So yeah, for the most part, I just forget this movie because honestly, I can't say much about it considering how much there really should not be in it. God, there I bring this movie up again. Norm of the North, Rob Schneider's animated polar bear adventure in New York City. Just saying that already guarantees this is not a movie I want to bring up again. But yes, this is a movie that exists. We got a polar bear voiced by Rob Schneider who gets a chance to visit New York City and be friends with a human, gets to save himself from being destroyed by other humans. I can't even say without talking like that. Yeah, the movie just bothers me a lot, okay? I really don't know if watching this movie again was really necessary. So, honestly, for a lot of these movies, I just look at what I remember from first viewing and just go research stuff from there because I feel like I can do that at this time. Maybe you argue that's not a good choice, but come on, you want to watch this movie with me? Sure, let's go ahead. Let's watch Norman the North. Because, like, I'm not doing these for a living. I'm just doing them to state my own opinion. So I did not have to rewatch this movie. Because I can look back at the stuff that I saw and remember how abysmal this is. It's a pretty abysmal and unfun movie to watch. So, believe me, you don't want to sit through it. I certainly didn't want to sit through it again. Why I sit through it in the first place, I will never know. But yeah, it pisses me off. Rob Schneider just isn't a great actor. I'm sorry to those who want to praise his work. I do not think he's a good actor. Okay, I'm sorry to disappoint you Schneider fans, but Rob Schneider just isn't a good actor to me. You know, he's not funny, and I'm not going to blame him entirely for this movie, but still, he is one of the things that surrounds this movie's problems. The humor, the animation, all that stuff. So, like the Tom and Jerry movie, the Felix the Cat movie, I kind of just watched at a stake of a weird memory experience. Because, my experience with the cartoon character is not that big. Like, Felix the Cat is a cat named Felix. I can't really say much more about it. I just knew the character existed, so when I knew he apparently had some weird film, I checked it out, and yeah, it pretty much has the same problems as the Tom and Jerry movie have. It's forgettable. The animation doesn't feel like a step up. In fact, in this case, it looks like it's even worse than the original cartoons animation, which I did look more into. And yeah, the Felix the Cat is just not cinematic material. So, granted, I just don't think this movie really has so much to it. They add in a lot of these characters who mean nothing, and a lot of these story structures that the cat does not fit with. So, if you can't really think of anything creative to put the character into, then just leave it best to leave the character where he is. That should be a method for bringing cartoon characters to the big screen. Only do it when you have a story that makes sense and can work with the character. Because if you don't, you're just gonna get pointless, annoying, not very remembering, just dumb shit like this. Okay, so this is the most recent anime movie on this list. I watched this on the sake of just getting out of hate watch, because like most movies here, we all knew this movie was awful from the beginning. It's probably the most horrendously amazing film here. It's terrible. Okay, the voice acting, the animation, everything about this movie is awful. It is among just terrible nonsense. But it's funny, not for the right reasons. It's just hilarious how terrible the voice. Oh, I'm sure we all seen when the movie trailer first came out the memes about Pauly Shore's voice acting. I would, I would recreate his iconic terrible voice, but no, I'm not gonna do it. No, no, you can't even put me in pressure. I'm not gonna do it because this movie is just thinking about it. It's just why does this exist? You can give hate to Disney's live action remake of Pinocchio all you want, but one thing's for sure, at least at least it looked cleaner than this. At least I know I really it's not something that you think you could praise, but comparing it to this seems like a big low bar. But still, you know, you when you think of the worst you see of Pinocchio, this is usually what comes up. And there are a lot of cases where Pinocchio gets a bad treatment, but this probably takes the cake. It's a terrible movie. Honestly, it's just really bad. Now, honestly, I might as well just end the video there because if you watched my channel before, then number one seems pretty obvious. So I might just spend like less than a minute on it. I mean, what else can I say? I've said enough about Food Fight. The animation, yes, I've said enough about it. The story, I've said enough about it. I guess one thing I could do is kind of try and analyze more into how the animation's not the only thing surrounding this movie. Because even though the animation is abysmal, I feel like there's people out there who would think I should look more into the actual story and not get so wound up in how it looks, because that's the thing that you gotta get used to in real life. But that's the thing, even the story doesn't work either. It's about this detective who's a dog who has to solve a crime for food icons getting obliterated. But that's not the problem. The problem is that they set up this world where they live that doesn't have much of a character to it. They don't really set it up well enough to make sense. And the main food mascots you see in this poster, like when you look at this poster, you can see Mr. Queen. Well, you don't see him, but he's in the movie. I should follow him. You can see the Stark, his tuna. You can see the Twinkie, Mrs. Buttersworth. I don't remember what that bird's name is, but yeah, they seem like they'll have a big part in this movie, but they don't. No, you see the two characters at the bottom. They're the ones who are the main focus. This is awful. I don't think I can say anything else to it. So yeah, this movie is just unwatchable. I mean, not even from comedic irony. It's not even that. No, it's not like the last one where it's so bad it's funny. It's not even that. It's just, God, I just can't stand sitting through any more of it. It gets so irritating to sit through. And honestly, I just do not think you all need to hear anything more come out of my mouth. So, did that satisfy you at all? No? I'm just making up shit from what your opinions are. I do that a lot, don't I? I assume that this video isn't interesting, but with the low quality, the lack of actual capturing, and no real visual effects to make the thing cool, I don't do this because I want to make a living off of YouTube. So that's kind of why I just assume you people don't care about this, because I'm not trying to make this mainstream YouTube. I'm just making videos for the sake of being fun. I just want to share to people what I think. And from this list of my least favorite anime movies, now you know what anime movies I hate the most. Now you can get mad at me or agree with me. Your pick.